All right, hey 10th graders, this is Mr. Hesson and also class. This is my teacher demo here. So today what I wanted to do was give you guys my teacher demo as well as kind of explain my reasoning behind everything, my thought process, all that stuff. And first of all, I will say that I will not be teaching sitting down. The only reason why I am sitting down is because I don't have a whiteboard behind me to teach from. I'm going to be using Zoom. I don't know if you guys could have seen my tabs actually on top of it, but I basically didn't know how to record on Zoom because I hadn't been recording on Zoom ever. And so it's going to be a trial and error process. Now, if COVID or something like that were to happen once again, then, I would probably have to be doing a Zoom, and this is the way that I'd have to teach. But I thought this was the best way that I could do it. And so I just kind of also wanted to explain my teaching process, my teaching values, and things of that nature. So this is actually the first lesson that I'm teaching. I hope you guys are excited to learn about it here today. And I want to also talk briefly about kind of what I would like to do as a teacher. So one of my things that I like to do as a teacher is to actually have the presentation as I do in front of the screen here. I'm very into Google Drive, Microsoft, all that stuff. And I think having, a thing like Google Drive where I can almost put my lesson plans on a Google Drive slide, just like it is right here, and have that on the board for students to kind of see, this is what we're going to be doing today, what the goals are, things like that. I think that will actually really help students and it'll help me as an educator and getting on the right path there. So that's one of the reasons why I have this. I think what I was going to do was at first it's going to be challenging to kind of figure out what my system is, but maybe label it into weeks and have like a Thursday, April 18th, 2024, which is actually the due date of this project, and have, like let's say week of April 18th to April 25th, right? And I have, 5 different days as far as the lesson plans are concerned, instead of doing one long day of 180 days in the school year, whatever it is. And so that's for me what I think is going to work best for me, but that may change. Maybe I do, how it has right here at the agenda. I do an agenda every day, and then I make a separate slideshow basically linking that day's lesson plan. So that's kind of, what I'm going to be doing here, but I hope to have kind of like my agenda and things like that on here. And also I am taking one of my lessons from my lesson plan that I did make. So it is one of those things that should work well, and I can include links and things like that. But this is kind of where I'm at with that and kind of what my thought process was behind that. So, anyways, today we're going to be talking about, as you guys can see here, the history of Lakota and the Lakota language. Then we'll watch a quick Lakota language video. We'll go over the alphabet. Then we'll go over history of Dakota and Dakota language alphabet video, history of Dakota and Dakota language, and Dakota language alphabet video. That video is actually a little bit changed. It is actually a different video. I couldn't find a great alphabet video, so I should have gone in there and changed that, but it was a last second decision there. And I think that's important as an educator to know that things are going to change. But that was the agenda that I had on there. And going to the next slide, if I allow me, there we go. Standard for today. I think this is going to be the good way for me to do it. That way my students know kind of what the standards are looking like. So I have the standard 3.1 from the OSEU standards. Identify similarities and differences among Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota language dialects. And then in the highlight there, I have students will be able to identify similarities and differences among the languages of Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota tribes. Students will learn the origin and history of the Dakota language and culture, and students will learn the basic Dakota alphabet. So, one of those things here where I can kind of go over my standards and make it like that. So this is kind of an example of what I would be doing for my lesson here. So I would kind of have notes that are on the board here and for people to write down because, I'm planning on teaching history and I think note taking is essential. So history of Lakota and Lakota language. Lakota language dates back to 900 CE. Lakota language speakers tended to live in the upper portions of the Midwest, such as states like Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Most were prevalent in Minnesota, Iowa, and eastern North Dakota, however. Lakota is immense in popularity as the Lakota language is one of 8 native languages with over 5,000 speakers. I thought that was really intriguing and a very big difference between some of the other tribes like Dakota and Nakota. And the fluent speakers are starting to dwindle, hopes to keep the language alive and young. So some of the original Lakota language members, your children's grandparents, etc., starting to dwindle as far as population. So there's been a renounced effort to keep the fluent nature of the language intact. So that was something intriguing there. And then usually I'm a big audio guy as well, right? So I like to kind of take a look at, a video, for example. So let's go ahead and watch this video.
Copy. It's good to see you. So now that we've learned the sounds that exist in Lakota Dakota, we're going to learn the names of the letters that we give them in the SLO. It's important to refer to the letters by their Lakota names. That way we can stay in the language, which is really important, especially if you're working in an immersion school. But it's also to help us recognize the sounds and make life a little bit easier for us. So the first letter that we have is A, then Be.
I do also want to note too that in this situation right here where we are learning alphabet letters, because it's only a 15-minute teacher demo, I'm not going to pause it every second, but I would, as a teacher, I would have the class practice saying these words. So, we do one letter, play it. It would be a lot of play and pause, but I think it's important to kind of practice that. And also with that, after this entire alphabet thing is done, with me being specialized in this, I would have groups of four and just practice saying letters and things like that. That way, students are able to connect the dots there and connect the words with what their meaning is behind them. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Obviously, you don't have time to do that now, but that was just something that I was planning on doing.
Ju, Chi, O, E, Glee, Ru, Ha, He, In, In, Gu, Ka, Ki, O, La, or in Dakota Da, Ma, Na, O, Bu, Pa, Pi, O, Sa, She, Tu, Tra, Ti, O, U, Un, Wa, Ya, Za, Je. So those are all the letters in our Lakota alphabet. So whenever you see in English, you would say the S with the little V over it, you can just call that letter she. So this becomes really important in an immersion setting and really useful when we're learning Lakota Dakota. Now, if you're having trouble memorizing the letter names, you're in luck because the Lakota Language Consortium has created a fun song that includes all of the letters of the alphabet, and I'll write that link in the description below and put it on the Othokahe website.
So that's just an example right there of kind of what I think videos are important. I really do. I think videos are essential. I'm more of a visual learner, so when I'm in the classroom, when I was in the classroom, learning, through videos kind of helps me, and especially an interactive one like that, where trying to learn the difference between these tribes and the languages, etc. Having a video right there that kind of does a really good job of doing that, I think is going to be important. So moving on to the next, let's go ahead and take a look at the history of Dakota and Dakota language. Comes from the Mississippi Valley Sayoan language. Dakota refers to the Sioux people. Dakota language is relatively similar to the Lakota language. I think all three, for that matter, are all relatively similar with differences here and there. And Dakota language was the first established language for the early people of Minnesota, actually, my home state. So interestingly enough there that the Dakota language, and it makes sense because of Dakota as a whole, we have the North Dakota, South Dakota as states. It's not North Lakota, South Lakota. Dakota was extremely prevalent in obviously the Midwest here. I would say the most prevalent between Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota there. And again, we got a Dakota language alphabet. We got two videos here, so letters A through G.
This is a
This is the
capital.
downside of having
It's
YouTube, is the fact that there's always these
it has a really strong.
Ah, 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 desu ka? Ah, ah, desu ka?
One of the things I did really like about this video when I was looking at videos there was the comparisons to the right here of having kind of how it sounds and like syllables. It's like you're trying to pronunciate one word or another.
Pao, ba, ba, bedo, ba, bedo, bedo, cha, cha, gistina, cha, gistina, gistina, ch, ch, chante, ch, chante, chante, da, da, Dakota, da, Dakota, Dakota, e, eti, e, eti, eti, opa, opa, opa.
I think what's interesting about that video too in particular is the fact that it's more of a collaborative one. It's bringing the entertainment component into education. That was one of the reasons why I did like it.
He, 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 cante, 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 y, y, está, y, está, está, in, in,
I think it's
Ianca,
funny how it says someone runs and it's a horse running.
Ianca, Ianca, ka, ka, gimamana, ka, gimamana, gimamana, ka, canta, ka, canta, canta.
And so, yeah, just those videos right there. Again, as a teacher and in my classroom, if this was a full, prolonged 45 to 50-minute session, I would go over these videos. I would play them one by one. We'd practice saying these, and then we'd get into groups and practice saying them as well. In my unit plan as a whole for this lesson, it was actually divided into like 3 different days. I had one whole day on Lakota. Actually, it was 2 whole days with Lakota with video, a worksheet, etc. Same with Dakota and Nakota. But since this is kind of a teacher's demo and it's one of those things that's only 15 minutes compared to it being 3 days, I want to condense it all into one just so it's like kind of a brief outline and explain the thought process and moving on there. So, history of Nakota and Nakota language. It was also known as the Asanombi language. These Nakotans were first approached by the Europeans in 1737, so way back there. They originally settled on the central Saskatchewan River in eastern Alberta. The one thing that hurt Nakotan people was diseases. Half of the 10,000 people were killed by smallpox in 1981. There was also 2 more major smallpox outbreaks there on the Nakota people. And in the 1830s, 60% of the population was gone from diseases. Smallpox was the biggest one by far, but there were some other diseases that really impacted the Nakota people. And I believe it was 1870s was when they were able to kind of get that population back on track there. So a lot of people like to think of this as kind of like the Black Death, when the Black Death happened in Europe, and it was like 60% of the population was wiped out. It was a similar thing actually with the Nakota people, just the fact that it was Nakota people and it was smallpox and other of those diseases that these tribal leaders and tribal people were not immune to. And so it was one of the things that devastated the Nakota population. So this is the alternate. I know I had put in the agenda. I thought I had changed it, and I think I did, but for some reason it didn't show up there. Instead of the Nakota alphabet and whatever, I found this really good documentary, 10 Days of Nakota, and it basically just talks about the Nakota people. Since I think it's 30 minutes long. I can't have the 30 minutes in here. So I put in the video 1350 to 1550. It would be a separate day for Nakota as a whole. And so this would actually be played the full video. You can see under the link I have movie assignment 10 days of Nakota documentary sheet. So it is a documentary. And if you guys recall from, when you were in high school or sometimes in college, when you'd watch a movie, you'd have a worksheet to make sure you're paying attention. And so that's why I put in the movie assignment here. This would also be at the end of the lesson for me. And so we're going to go ahead and watch this 2 minutes of this video right here and, go from there. But want to just kind of briefly show you the video, play about 2 minutes of it or so you guys get to go. But the students would be having a movie worksheet that is associated with this movie to turn in for participation points at the end.
After sending my homeworks to my teacher, Miss Big Eagle, I thought it was the time to discover the RCMP Heritage Center, a place I've heard a lot about, where you can get in contact with parts of Canadian history.
As mentioned, was one there's a really presence around Saskatchewan. So it's that entire Canadian was really dominated by
I was lucky to receive an invitation from Crocus's mother, Juanita, to attend a very entertaining Lakota gathering at the community of Pheasant Run, where I had a lot of fun.
As you guys can tell, that is just a brief 2 minutes of the Nakota. It's actually a really good movie. I was kind of looking at it at first to kind of see like, okay, is this something that I could maybe pick and choose from different parts? But I ended up watching the whole thing, especially that portion there was one of my favorite parts of it. So, in my class, I would have them work on this worksheet and it'd probably lead us up to the end of the hour, which brings me into the final point of my presentation, which is the assignments portion. And the assignments portion is the 10 days of Nakota movie work. So that would be the worksheet. If for some reason it wasn't completed, regardless, it would be due at the beginning of next class period. And then chapter 11.3 questions. So I'm just guessing that the chapter that we're going to be talking about, assuming we have a Indian studies type book, and chapter 11.1 was Lakota, 11.2 was Dakota, and 11.3 was Nakota. So for this instance here, at the end of the 2 days, I would have the questions. So usually at the end of each lesson in a book, there's questions associated with. I'd pick and choose, let you know which questions were due and go from there. And then obviously you guys didn't see so those two would be due at the start of next class period. We'll go over the answers, things like that. The group project due April 22nd, 2024 is already outlined in my unit plan. I had that talked about briefly, so kind of hard to talk about right here, but groups would be decided into specific portions, right? It'd be Dakota, Nakota, Lakota. I would have 4 to 5 per group and they would make a presentation. I believe as an educator, every student is different and I believe that every student learns different ways. So, for chapters or units for that matter, I would do different things. I may have a test, I may do projects, a prezi, paper assignments, try to change up and see what best benefits everybody while also, having the inclusion aspect and having students be included included and feeling like they are able to use their strengths and weaknesses, and etc. So that would be the portion there. And then, as mentioned, the group project due on April 22nd, 2024, which is when I would actually be talking and people would be doing their presentation. So that was a brief teacher demo here. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Like I said, this was kind of a history lesson about the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, but I was also talking about kind of my education philosophy and what I planned on moving forward. And again, I can't wait to actually be in a classroom, be able to stand up at the front of the classroom with my whiteboard here, write stuff down and things like that. But I really do appreciate you guys watching this teacher demo, and we will talk hopefully sometime soon. But until then, take care.